Hello, and welcome to Introduction to Relay Classroom by Lightspeed Systems. Relay Classroom is a product of Lightspeed Systems, which is the company that provides our content filter. This is an extension of that product. What is Relay Classroom? Relay Classroom is a web-based tool that allows teachers to monitor and influence what students are able to do on Chromebooks. It can be accessed at classroom.relay.school, and teachers should choose to sign in with Google. Students are automatically linked to teachers through a Sync with School tool. So this means that you will be able to see student web-based activity, so you'll see their screens, and you can also influence what they're able to do, meaning that you can switch their tabs, you can also close tabs, and block sites as needed. To access and sign in to Classroom or Relay Classroom, you will go to classroom.relay.school and choose to sign in with Google using your district credentials. And at this point, we're going to go out to the site live. So here I am at classroom.relay.school, and I'm going to choose to sign in with Google. Now it's important that I sign in with my school district account, the one that ends with @albany.k12.ny.us. And when you do that, you will see one of your classes up in the upper left-hand side. If you want to see the rest of your classes, you click on it and you will have a drop-down menu that will show your other classes. I am currently only assigned to one class, which is FY Pod Advisory / Dudley-Pod. Sometimes users will see old classes, and in that event, you can manage your classes. Come to the far right side, click on the three dots, and you can hide the inactive classes. One thing you'll need to do early on is to configure your schedule for the classes you plan to use. In this case, mine says View Schedule, where it will say Configure Schedule for the first time you go to do this yourself. When I click on View Schedule, all I need to do is select the amount of time that I would like to apply rules to my students or to view their activity, and click Start. Now that the session is set up, you can see that I have one student who is present, and this is test student. And when test student refreshes his page or it makes his browser active, you'll see the site that test student is currently browsing, and then what the most viewed site of test student is. This here is called the list view, and that's this option here, list view. And what you'll see is all of your students' names, and then as I had stated, the site that they're currently on, their most viewed site, and how many recent websites they've been on. You have the ability to pin a student, and that pins the student up at the top. So if there are certain students you want to watch more closely, you can do that. To unpin a student, you just hover on them and unpin. Now, on the left side, you can see that I have one student who is showing as present. But if the student were to indicate that they have a question or that they need help, on the student side, they have an extension that runs that lets them either indicate that they are working, need help, or that they're done. So I switched that student's extension to need help, and you can see on the teacher side that I can see I have a student that needs help, and I can see which student it is that needs help. Once that student is done and back to work, they can indicate it on the extension that is automatically running on their Chromebooks. It's a turquoise colored extension, and now you can see that student is working again. If I wanted to get a closer look at what that student is doing, I could click on their name and I would actually see the screen the student is on. And we'll go back to that in just a moment. Another important thing to know is that We have list view, which is what we've been looking at, but I could also switch to heat map view. Now in heat map view, the students will appear in circles with their initials and or some indication of their name. And the darker the color, the more websites they've been on. So you have a glimpse into their web activity. You also have the ability to show all of their screens. Now when you do this, it may slow things down, so there's a warning to let you know that. But I'm going to go ahead and continue. And at this point, you can see a little thumbnail of what test student is doing. And if test student changes his site, you can see it reflected right in this thumbnail in real time. If I wanted to see test student more closely, I could click. And just like before, I'm able to see exactly what the student is doing. So this is a little preview. And if I had multiple students, you would see what all of the students are doing at one time. I'm going to return back to list view. And I'm going to click on test student, so that you can see this view, which we could get to from the heat map or from list view. So when looking on this screen across the tab, there are a few different tabs. There's open tabs, which is showing me that this student has 4 tabs currently open. Now, if I wanted to switch the student to a different tab, I could just click on the tab, and then the student's Chromebook would change to the tab that I clicked on. They would have the ability to go right on back, and they could, say, nope, I want to stay on Yahoo Sports. And we could switch them back again, but we don't want to get into this kind of push-pull back and forth. So one thing you could do is come over to the X on the far right side and just close the tab. Now later on, I will show you how you can block a tab as well. Or block a site, as well. You can also see that I'm able to switch the students to different sites. And like I said, I can also close out of a site. And because one of the sites that I was on is either the blocked site or it's a gaming site, one of them caused what they refer to as insights. So if you notice up here, it's telling me test student at 107 had unusual browsing activity. And that's probably because I went to addicting games, or perhaps I went to that gambling site, which I will show you in a moment. So I'm going to click back on that student. And again, if I saw the student was on a site I didn't want them on, I could just click and I'm redirecting them to the site I want. And if I really didn't want them on addicting games, I could just close it out on them. There's another technique that you could use there. You could click on the URL, the web address of the site you wish them not to be on. So I'll click on this, and it brings me to addictinggames.com, and I'm just going to copy it. We will come back to that thought later on when I show you how we can block a site. So for now, I'm just going to go ahead and close out of that tab for the student. The other thing I wanted to show you is that this student tried to go to zyngapoker.com, and Zynga Poker is blocked by default by the content filter. So you don't have to block every site in the world. They're already being filtered. It's just you will have additional controls beyond the content filter that already applies to the students when they're logged into a district Chromebook. You'll also notice that when you hover on the preview of the screen the student is on, you get some additional controls over on the right side. The top control would allow you to share that student's screen to everyone else who's connected to your classroom at that time. The next one allows you to lock the student's screen. So if I were to push the lock, it will tell the student that their Chromebook is locked by teacher J. Dudley in this case. This can be particularly effective if you are in person with the students. If you catch them doing something they shouldn't be doing, you could lock their screen and invite them to come over and have a conversation with you and remind them to bring their Chromebook with them. At that point, they would realize what the conversation is about, and you can probably handle it relatively quickly and in a somewhat non-confrontational manner and get them back on task. Next up is unlock screen. So if I had locked a screen, I can unlock their screen and send them on their way. I can also record. And if I click on record, it will record everything that student is doing in screenshots for 10 minutes. So you will get still screenshots for the next 10 minutes of what the student is doing. The next tab over is browsing history. So the browsing history I have found to be somewhat problematic or less than, not as reliable as we would like. Let's say it that way. So if I click on today's date, you can see the student has been on classroom.google.com. That's all that it's showing me. That's not even where the student is right now. So I tend to shy away from using the browsing history function. Recordings, however, can be quite effective. And as you can see, it's already taken 13 screenshots of what the student is doing. Now they're just sitting idle on Zynga Poker that's being blocked. And that was when it said that teacher Jay Dudley had locked the screen. So you can see it's getting some screenshots. And if I wanted to download one of these screenshots, I could download the screen and then save it and attach it to an email or whatever I need, wherever I would like to attach it. The next section has recently been updated, and that's the Send Message section. When you click on Send Message, you see Need Help, Are You Done, Great Job, and Custom. We'll come back to Custom as this is the new feature right here. Need Help, Are You Done, and Great Job coincide with the extension that appears on the student devices. By clicking on the extension, the students are able to indicate whether they are working, need help, or that they're done. So you see you have these options here to talk to them. But you can also add a custom message. So when I click on custom message, I can send a custom message up to 150 characters and send it off to the students. Now it is just a one-way message. So even though on their side they'll see yes or no, regardless of what they indicate, you will not see a response on your side. It is just simply a one-way message at this point in time. I anticipate them developing this further in the future. I'm going to go ahead and close this tab. And again, to get there, all I did was click on the student, whether it was in list view or in heat map view. I can click on the student and it'll bring back that screen we were just looking at. You can see the student now has just 2 open tabs. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and close this tab. It's not necessary. And now they have just their 1 tab. This can be very helpful when you see a number of tabs at the bottom to help students get on task. Sometimes they have many tabs open and they're just not sure where they're supposed to be. So from the teacher side, you can click on one of the tabs and help redirect them and get them back to where they're supposed to be. There's another tool that Relay Classroom has that allows you to assist students as well in terms of getting them where you want them to be, and I will show you that shortly. Remember, this is the open tabs. We have browsing, recordings, and send message, and when I hover, that's when you see the share screen, lock screen, unlock, and record. I'm going to switch back to list view, and you may have noticed that we have an insight, and that's telling me that at 1:07 we had a student that was doing some unusual browsing activity. So it runs an algorithm that tries to guess whether or not students are where you want them to be. And if you want to clear those insights, you can come over to the side and just click on Clear All. The next thing I want to show you are some of the web rules. So you'll see that it says custom, but you have a few options. The first one is none. What none means is that you have no additional web rules applied to your students beyond what the content filter is already applying to them. So what is already being blocked by the district will continue to be blocked. You're just not adding any to that. So that is none. No browsing shuts off the internet for the devices, essentially. So we wouldn't be using that a whole lot in a fully hybrid environment or fully virtual environment. But if we're hybrid or maybe in person, there may be a use for that. And then customize. So in customize, we have two options, focus mode and explore mode. Now in focus mode, students can only visit the websites you allow. This is the most restrictive and also the most challenging to manage. The reason it's challenging to manage is that some sites call upon other sites to display content within that site. And if you are only allowing students to go to a particular set of sites and you don't know where the content is coming from, portions of those sites could be blocked. It can also be very challenging in terms of workflow because you have to also allow every piece of travel along the way. So if a student has to sign in through Clever and then go to website A to get to website B, you would have to have all of that allowed, and that can be quite challenging. Explore mode is the preferred method by most folks, and that is where you can allow them to browse within the confines of what the district has already established by the content filter, and then you can additionally block sites. So if you remember a while back, we noticed that our student was on addictinggames.com, and I had clicked on the link and I came up here and I copied it. Well, at this point, I could paste it in here, and what it's going to do is block addictinggames.com, and once we clean it up a little bit, it'll block everything on that site. And what I mean by clean it up a little bit is it will not allow me to block as it sits right now, meaning that if I click apply, it's going to tell me there's an error. And the reason there's an error is because it doesn't want any slashes. So I'll remove that slash, and I'll come over here and I'll remove the HTTPS : and the 2 forward slashes. All it wants is the web address. So when I do that, I will go ahead and apply. And now that student would not be able to get, or any of those students would not be able to get on addictinggames.com. And if they try, it will show that it is being blocked by teacher J. Dudley. We'll do one more. We saw before the student was on sports.yahoo.com. So I can just type it in. Notice I didn't even put a www. I don't need to. I don't need to put the slashes in. It's going to block everything on sports.yahoo.com. So I'm going to go ahead and apply that. Now you may have noticed before I do that it says allow full internet access when students change their status to done. So what that means is that, remember, the students have an extension and they can indicate that they're done. And if they're done, then they would have free reign on the internet. And you can judge how well that will or will not work for your students. In this case, as in most cases, we're going to leave that off. And now I apply. And what I want to do is watch test student's screen as test student tries to go to sports.yahoo.com. It started to load, and then it said, whoops, teacher J. Dudley has blocked this website for now. Okay? And that's what it looks like when you block a student using a custom web rule under the Explore mode option. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and remove those and apply. And now if that student was to go back to sports.yahoo.com, they are able to get back to that sports page. Again, this is purely for the example there. And I just closed the tab on them because I didn't really want them there anyway. Okay. So those are the customized rules. Remember, focus mode only lets them visit certain sites, and explore mode will still let them visit what they're able to visit normally as students within our district, but then you can additionally block other sites. Please keep in mind here the connection to the importance of your schedule. If you are blocking sites that students would need in another class, it's really important that you choose the appropriate schedule, or at the end of your session, you come up to stop and you stop applying those rules to that student. The next thing I would like to show you is send link. You have the ability to send students a link. So let's just pretend, since I have it open, I wanted to send them off to addictinggames.com. I am going to send this link. And matter of fact, before I do that, I will open this up so you can see on the student side. So I send the link, and the student is now on addictinggames.com, just like that. If you're wondering, it did not close their classroom tab. Their classroom tab is still there. It just opened an additional tab and put them on it. So if you wanted to send them the link to their assignment in Google Classroom, you can take them directly to it. And this can be very helpful. So again, I sent them a link to a website, but I could also send them a link to an assignment because that is a function of Google Classroom. That is send link. Now under more options, you could lock all of the student screens at one time. Previously, we had learned how to lock a single student screen. This button lets you lock all students at one time. Next up, we have share screen. This would only work if you have a client installed on your device, but typically we would share screen using Google Meet or some other tool. And then class settings, which is where I could manage the duration of the time period that I would be applying rules or watching my students, and or where I could manually add students if necessary. That is likely to become necessary only in the event where you've created a custom class of your own, which is the new update. In order to create a custom class of your own, you click on the drop-down arrow and you choose Manage. From your list of classes, on the right side you'll see a plus. You go ahead and click on the plus, give your class a name, and save it. This creates a custom class. From here, we could go to the class settings and then manually add students using their school email address. And that's how you would add a custom class with a customized roster of students. These are the main features of Relay Classroom, and I hope that this overview is helpful. If you need additional help or support, they do have additional help on their site, and it's linked directly to their homepage, or directly from your homepage. You can also get support from albanytechcoach.weebly.com, which is the home of the Albany Tech Coaches. And if you go to the support page, which is support requests, you can submit a support request and one of the tech coaches will be happy to help you out.